something I did not foresee myself or anyone or anyone in general saw. So this is just going to be a open question answer. And actually, I've got to jump over to the Instagram and actually officially go live because I'm not live over here just yet. So that's what I'll mention later on is I still make plenty of mistakes to this day. So we'll go ahead and jump live over here on the Instagram and we will be golden. So yeah, go ahead and drop all your questions just below. Those of you who are on Facebook in front of me. And we are officially now live on the Instagram to my right-hand side where we're going to be doing a open question and answer. So don't ever hesitate to reach out if you happen to have any questions. Just go ahead and drop those below. So I want to give a few shout outs. Got some live comments. So we're actually on YouTube in front of me and also Facebook. And kudos to the Bigger Pockets team, mainly Nikki, Jessa, there's Scott Trich. You guys are doing an awesome job in terms of getting this content out as much as possible to individuals to really see this, especially during these times that we're currently facing. Myself, I want to create as much positivity as possible because I'm going through the same thing that majority of you are going through. Not necessarily on the side of getting laid off. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. So I wouldn't say always been laid off, but I've always had to figure out how to navigate during making certain pivots. Similar to getting laid off, now your job is to find another job or figure out another direction that you plan on going into. So, all right, we'll go ahead and just jump into it and comment below, those of you who are here. And let me know where you are from. I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana. And it is now officially shifted to a little bit of spring, but it's still pretty cool quite a bit. So that's how it is in Indianapolis. So we've got Todd Fuller Love. Thanks for joining. We got Linda Thomas. We've got Scott Winnie. I tend to butcher people's names, so please excuse me on that. We've got C Tech who's on here. We got Jason Brown from Baltimore. We've got Brent Paul. One question, if we could have that queued up, that from Brent Paul that says, do you still think it's a great time to buy or should we wait a few months? That is a great question. And hey there, Gerard J-Rock, very familiar with you. So yeah, right from the get-go, and this is a great question. I would say, and this is what I've learned from others, and you can look at it from the 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009 times, that those that really went all in and started buying deals when it was pennies on the dollar, they buy in the worst times and they buy in when they're at the top of the market. Of course, they mitigate their risks as much as possible at the top of the market. But when it's at the bottom of the market and people are more scared, then that is a good indication it's the right time to buy. But I'll later go into the things to look for. But just to give you all some context on myself, and those of you on Instagram, my handle is Sterling White Official. That is at Sterling White Official. So we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. In case you're wondering, who is this bald guy that's in front of this camera that is talking to me? So the name is Sterling White, born and raised in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I grew up in the rougher parts of the city where when you tend to drive through the neighborhood, especially during the nighttime, you would roll your windows up and lock the doors. And so through that, had a fraternal twin brother. Well, still have a fraternal twin brother and a single mother. Dad wasn't around very much. And the moments I do remember of him were just not very pleasant. And so through that, just one case, and many of you have heard this story, there was a point in time where my brother and I, we were about 5 or 6 years old. We're sitting down. It was like one of those little Fisher Price picnic tables. And we're eating. It was either Roman noodle and some hot dogs. And as soon as we get done eating, we go upstairs. A bullet comes right through the back patio where we were actually sitting. So I may not be here or he may not even be here. And so through that experience, I decided to use that as fuel versus, hey there, Larry Christoph, great to see you. We got Chris Pierce from Indy. Oh, awesome, a fellow Hoosier. All right. Yes. And, oh, you got a fraternal twin. All right, fraternal twins. And those of you who are bald as well, comment below too. And I do have a Steelers jacket on, so would love to know I know we got tons of comments that are going on. Those of you who are bald, comment below. And also, what is your favorite sports team? And I know I may be getting a little bit of flack right now because of me being a Steelers fan. And yes, Austin Emerson, that was a stray bullet that did come through the back patio. So that was just the type of environment. So anything above and beyond just the standard living as a kid, such as the Michael Kaler says, bald buyers are beautiful. Thank you so much for queuing that up. That is true. And I believe we got a competitive advantage too, because by being bald, you got more of an aerodynamic. So can run faster. Yes, got Zach. We got another one from Indianapolis, Indiana. Awesome. So anything above beyond just the standard living as a kid that I thought was cool, which is the clothes, the shoes at that time. I had to figure out a way to earn money because at that time we were living in Section 8 housing, subsidized food stamps, and I'm sure of other type of government assistance my mother didn't tell both my brother and I about. And I remember there was one instance where I was actually going to pay for an item at the store with food stamps, and I was so discouraged by that. And I would say, that's another thing that helped me fuel because I do not want to be in that situation. And also I want to provide to my mother so she doesn't have to go back to that situation ever. And yes, I will go into what I'm doing right now, real estate related. So fast forward, got started in construction. This was 2009 where things were not going so well, very similar times to now. Fell in love with real estate. But not so much construction. Shifted to the buy and hold investing. Bought very first single family deal. This was this very first single family house. No money out of pocket. This was 2013. 23 years old. Scaled up to 150 single families. 2017 made the complete shift to multifamily and scaled portfolio to just under 600 units. And have since sold the smaller apartments and also exit out of all the single families. So now just under 400 units, just solely on multifamily, and valuation is just under 20 million. And why I'm telling you that is just giving you all some context on myself in case you're just now coming across me. And the thing is, I'm not perfect by any means. I still make mistakes to this day. And the earlier mistake I just made was I forgot to actually publish live on the Instagram over to my right-hand side. And then also when I was shooting my podcast, The Real Estate Experience, the other day, is the guest that I had on. Halfway through, I realized that I did not hit the record button. So not perfect by any means and still make mistakes. And so now I just want to go over for you all that are on here, what am I doing and what I have experienced with the team in terms of the operation side. We got Rich Gadi, who is a Niners fan. We got Javier Felix, who is from Los Angeles Dodgers. Is it true that a casino is coming to Indiana? We already have a casino. It's in, I forget where it is because I don't gamble or anything. Yes. So we have someone that says, okay, Austin from Fort Wayne. Okay, you're pretty close. Question here is, what's your favorite part of Indy to invest? I'm from Indy also. I go to Butler currently and am looking to purchase my first property. So I really am pushing out more to the suburban locations personally. So if you're familiar with places, I have an apartment that's just outside of Avon, which is very desirable in township schools. So just on the west side. And then also I have one that is closer to Greenwood that is in Southport, Indiana. So formerly I was closer to the city, which the closer you get to the city of Indianapolis, and it may be amongst everyone else's city, the actual city and downtown is flourishing and blooming. There's quite a bit of new construction and product that is being built. However, outside of that, the urban core, or just outside of the urban core, is you have those neighborhoods that are nearby that are actually up and coming. So there's Fountain Square is one. So Matt, it comes down to where you personally, what your philosophy is in terms of the investing, because my personal preference may not fit within your model. You may be looking for a more appreciation play. You may be looking for a more stable and cash flow. So that'll really vary. But like Fountain Square area, like the Bates Hendricks, but I like more of the suburbs. Greenwood, Indiana, Plainfield, Indiana. Up north, you can't go wrong. You've got Carmel, Indiana, which is one of the top affluent parts when it comes to across the country. Fishers, there's Noblesville. However, that's a little bit pricier for my specific model. So those just a couple things that come to mind in terms of the suburbs. However, when you're getting close to the city, that's where you really have to have that boots on the ground, which it says you have that boots on the ground. And there's tons of valuable information on others who have been able to get started getting their first deal as well. And you can check that out on BiggerPockets.com, Matt. So hopefully that does help for you. So another question we have here is, if you're going to use an investor to buy a single family property, what is a way to negotiate the investor getting money back? So that it seems this is a question along the lines of how to structure the deal. So the very first, how I structure my deals now is a syndication. And one thing is, it's not just myself. There is a team involved that helps with this, but I'm the main operator along with my partner amongst the apartments that I now own. Is that you say you invest, and for me, let's say you invest $100,000, you'll be earning a 10% return. So within 7 years or 5 years, within 7 years, you'll be able to earn all your money back. And then after that, we will do a cash out refinance or sell the property. So you'll get your cash back from the cash flow. In addition, there will be a split of the profits as well. So that's the way when you're sitting down with an investor and you're giving an overview of, okay, this is the types of deals I invest in, and this is the types of returns that you'll be able to get. And then also, what drives you? Love your energy. Thanks so much for that. I would say I have a combination of drivers. One is the upbringing that I've had. So one, I don't want to go back to that, and I want to be a ideal and message for people who came from that environment that, hey, you don't have to take this not so good path, which is what majority of people do take in that environment, whether that is, drugs, murder, or robbing and leading to jail. So that's not the path I would want people to take. And hey, this is the path that I took, and here's the blueprint. So that's one. Also, I have a 7-year-old Angel, and she was actually on the stream. This was last week. That she's like me. She looks like me, but she's in denial, of course. She's got hair down to her back like Tarzan. So that's something else is fuel. And then also I have fuel I had people very close to me growing up that told me I wasn't going to amount to anything. So, I mean, I use the negative energy as fuel. And then also I use some good. And it really depends on what stages of life that I am in as well. So how did you, and then also I want to take a step back and just keep everyone in the loop of how I am managing everything and with the team as well. So what I've mentioned is last month, the collections were very good. So over 90% amongst the apartments that I currently do own. And so with that, there was no necessary red flags. And so we collected majority of our rent before the mid-March. However, things really started to hit the fan. It feels like these past 2 to 3 weeks have been months. Comment below if anyone else is experiencing that. Just these past couple of weeks have just been just slowed down quite a bit. So there's that. Would love to hear others from that. And to go back and answer that person's, okay, I forgot where I was going, but oh, yes. So the context I was going is that the occupancy and also the collections were very good, and there was nothing too abnormal about that. However, lockdown happened in my city where there's still the essential businesses only that are open, which Starbucks is still open to among other locations, which I don't know if that's essential, but not getting into that. They still do they do them. So in terms of this month, we're really going to start to see things, and I'm getting an update in terms of the reporting, how collections have been up to this point, because I feel, and Matt did a stream, I believe this was last week or beginning of last week or mid the week before that, and I'll tell you guys, I just completely lost track of time, is that it's a ripple effect. meaning that some people, of course, they saw everything then and there with the restaurants, the hotel industry. That was Airbnb, short-term rentals, boom, that was cut off then and there. However, in my space is there's not the actual website MySpace, but MySpace of the income producing multifamily, and I target the working class. So what you would say workforce housing. So rents between 600 to 900, that is starting to see potentially a ripple effect of that in itself of the people losing jobs. And then this month, we're seeing the first couple of weeks how that pans out. Have had that open communication with the lender. If this happens, then what are our options? And also our management team did the management team did a good job of getting ahead of the curve once everything started to the outbreak and the lockdowns, is over communicating with the residents, offering incentives that if you pay your rent early, you'll be able to get $25 off your rent. There is a referral bonus. So if you bring someone to the community to be able to rent, then we will increase what it normally is. So just offering those things and really getting ahead of the curve. And then also at the locations I have on site staff, because I target 75 units plus in terms of apartments. So there is on site. So we ended up shutting that down to the public. You can go in, you can pay rent, but outside of that, there's no traffic. So that's what's going on in my world. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind. So yeah. So let's go ahead and okay, there we go. What's the best marketing strategy to find motivated sellers? This question is from Davion. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Descata, thank you so much. And so the best marketing strategy is the one that, and it does vary upon market. And also the biggest thing I want everyone to get away from this is it's about consistency. Because if you're not consistent with it, the marketing channel that I use that I truly enjoy is cold calling. And many of you, when I say cold calling, you're just itching all over. It's like, I don't necessarily know how to do. You mean I have to call a complete stranger? But this also goes down to your whys too. So you're willing to do things that get you out of your comfort zone. And to be transparent with you all too, I have a team now that does the calling too, but still I have to follow up with owners, someone who just hung up on me and told me I shouldn't even be in the business, that I have to follow up with them and do a personal visit of one that says, hey, just happen to be in a neighborhood, want to stop by and put my hand in your hand. So those types. So at the end of the day, okay, I still get a little bit nervous too. And I get that inside that, oh, shall I do this? But every time I do it, so I'll give you all a prime example is, to go back to Davion's question is there's cold calling. That's one that I best utilize. And then also direct mail. And however, within my space, I'm targeting apartments 75 to 200 units. I have a very niche approach and a sniper approach because I'm very narrow. So I do the cold call. I do personal visits as one. That does take a little bit more time because it's not as scalable. And I do direct mail. But when it comes to the direct mail, many of you have heard is that I use, and also text is another one good one too, is when it comes to direct mail, one that I'll send out, and you can go to Amazon.com and find these in bulk, is I'll send a Rubik's Cube to an owner, a very small one that has a small note that says, hey, let's figure this out. And yes, I have someone that says, hate cold calling. So in that route is you would have to use another channel, or you can hire someone. You can get someone from Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com, or even Upwork.com. There's always a way. I wouldn't let that be a barrier that, hey, this person says the best way to be able to find deals is cold calling. However, I'm not a cold caller, so I'm just not even going to get started either way. So I would just say, let's not make that an excuse by any means. And that's just, and on these, I want to mention to everyone, I'm not the all by means, this is what you should do, I know it all. Myself, I just do experience share of what has worked for me and hopes that could work in your scenario. But I'm still growing and I'm still evolving as a person as well. I make plenty of mistakes. I know my strengths, or I'm becoming even more aware of my strengths, and then also the weaknesses too, and working to become more self-aware on that too. And that's one thing I'm doing on a daily basis is I actually have right here And this also is one thing that helps me with energy and really to get going, because even still now, I mean, I still have that mental drain, all that's going on in the outside world, but here is my goals that I write on a daily basis. So that helps me with constant reinforcement of where I'm going. And I know I'm going in a long-winded question to answer your question, Davion, but so those are the types of things. And when I was mentioning earlier the story I had, so there was an owner that is just not very nice, and I was driving past his apartment, and from that, I knew that I drove past it, and that little thing in the back of my head, because I always know that I want to follow up with people and do personal visits. And I was driving by, and I said, "Oh, you could just call him later," or he just hung up on you last week, or he didn't respond actually to when I had reached out to him. So I said, "Oh no, it's completely fine." And then as soon as I heard myself said that, that was a belief or a limiting belief or me using an excuse, and I turned around, and that's when I visited. He wasn't there. I left a little thank you card, but that's what I want to just mention to everyone is myself. I still have those thoughts, and when I have those, I like to short circuit and then take action. So we got Kenneth Clark. Thanks for jumping in here. What's your Instagram name so I can follow you? It is Sterling White Official. One more time, that is Sterling White Official. And someone put that up here, please, and I can go ahead and pin it. Sorry, Sterling, where do you find the names to cold call? So great question. There is a process in itself, and I can get very in depth on this. But when let's say you're doing the driving for dollars, everything is public record. On single family, it's a lot more easier to find the person's first and last name, because you can go to 123 Main Street type. Okay, you hear that quite often. Let me use 234 Main Street actually, and so 234 Main Street. Indianapolis, Indiana. You can type that into the public record, your specific county, and if it's a single family and the owner lives there, which is known as owner occupant, then if they have it they'll have it in their own name, and then from there you can skip trace that name. And this is the very exact way I was able to get my very first 46 unit deal with cold calling. I did the driving for dollars. But in essence is, let's say the person, hopefully their name isn't as common as, John Smith, but let's say it's Mill Barbados, Windmill Barbados. Let's say it's that. You can use a site such as truepeoplesearch.com. That is completely free. It's not, the data can be hit or miss sometimes. When you go with the paid services, such as, let's say, Ben Verified, which is BENverified.com. I'm not affiliated with either of these. Just want to mention that. Is that when you would use, let's say, your specific name, type that in there, and then all the data comes up with, Windmill Barbados. You can find their primary residence. It's kind of creepy, all the data points that you can be able to find there. Yes, I am a Steelers fan. And Nick just asked that, investor Nick. So public record, find the property, 224 Main Street, go in the public database, you can search it, your specific county, and then from there, if it's owned in their personal name, you can go to a site such as truepeoplesearch.com. That's completely free. Search their name, and then from there, that's when you can pull up their contact information, give them a call, and the call sounds very similar to this. This is what I leverage. So there's always a structure to the cold call, meaning the greeting, reason for and this was an aha moment for me. I never realized there was actually a structure for this. There is a greeting, a reason for the call, the qualifying, which is where you can get some engagement really from the next person, and then there is going for the appointment, and then actually the lock close. And so it goes ring, ring, ring. Let me start over. And this is role playing that I do with my team actually daily to ensure that we practice beforehand before we actually start making the calls. So with that is the call will go ring, ring, ring. Hello, John. Sterling here. Did I catch you at a bad time? A lot of times they'll say, well, it depends on what it is. Completely understand. I understand you have tons of things going on. Just wanted to personally reach out. I just bought Bentwood Apartments across the street from yours and wanted to see if you consider selling. They throw out not interested. I knew you'd say that before I even called. Tell you what, Give me 30 seconds. If you don't like what you hear, I'll hang up on myself. Sound fair? So that's because you'll get a ton of people that just say not interested in order to get you off the phone. But the key here is you're going to have to make a lot of calls, and that it's going to ultimately be a numbers game and a lot of calls, and then also looking at a lot of deals too in order to find the one that ultimately works. So hopefully that helps there. Is it a good time? Okay. Can you briefly discuss the formula you use when looking at potential properties to purchase? So I use, and I actually have the spreadsheet somewhere on BiggerPockets.com, a underwriting spreadsheet. So myself, I do, all right, we got someone from Miami that is a spreadsheet that is a underwriting tool. And it looks, so when I do the underwriting, I look at mainly what is the cash on cash, because I do syndications. So it has to be above a specific percentage. So myself, as the person putting the deal together, it's incentivizing or there's enough split or enough income that comes in to get the investor satisfied and above and beyond. And then also myself for being able to put the deal together, and then also look at the debt service coverage ratio. And this is one thing I want to mention too is, so this is a great question, 661 Rick, is that during these times that we're currently in, when you do a great job all the way on the front end, when it comes to underwriting, that will help you. Of course, it essentially mitigates your risk as much as possible. Thanks for joining here, January Childress. We've got Tasha Turner. All right, there we go. Valuable Visions LLC. And what I mean underwriting on the front end is that, okay, this is what it's, so it comes down to buy right, finance right, and then also buying in great locations. And what I mean by, oh, thanks for, yeah, so on the, if you're on Facebook, then you can see that underwriting tool that I actually have. It's already queued up. Thanks so much for putting that up there. And we got a couple people from Miami. No, thank you for joining in, Oak Graham. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Is what I mean by buy right is not overpaying for the property, saying that, okay, I know that this property is going to appreciate double next year. So I'm willing to take a negative cash flow at this point in time to be able to weather the storm to get to that point. Because if you're doing that now and you're looking to sell, you'd be in trouble. So there's that. So not over appreciating on over appreciation. And these are things that I've learned too, is the second is not over leveraging. So the most recent deal that I did, this was a 156 unit acquisition that the 70% of a loan was provided from the lender and then raised 30% to acquire. When it comes to over leveraging, I would say anything closer to 80%, 90%, that's where you can get in trouble, because when rents start to pull back a little bit, you don't have enough income that is coming in order to service that debt. And also with the finance, if you're able to get a fixed rate versus a variable and a lower interest rate. So on that deal too, was able to get 3 years interest only. And the downside on it was had to go recourse because this is through a regional bank. So that's one thing, speaking for personal experience, had to get the deal done by, and what I mean by recourse is if things hit the fan and they have to take the property back, they can go after me and my personal assets, versus a non-recourse loan is they can only take the property back. So that specific loan on that deal is recourse through the interest only period, and then it shifts to a non-recourse. So that's one thing I want to mention to everyone, if you can do that. If we could queue, and hopefully that did answer your question, 661 Rick. And we got a question here that's from oh my gosh, I don't, last name George. Okay. Is what's your typical split with your investors in the syndicated deal? Also, what are your exit strategies? Thank you. No, thank you for being an awesome human being. And I do want to give kudos to you all. Is at the end of the day, I know that we're currently in tough times, that tough times at this moment. But at the end of the day, we're, as America, coming together, that we're going to be better off. There's going to be some people, unfortunately, worse off, but it's about what you do today and during the times when you are down, to either self-improve, take pivots that'll ultimately set yourself up for later success. So one thing myself, not referring to myself in the third person view, is I always look at today, when future Sterling looks back, past Sterling, you did an awesome job for setting me up in the future. So I know I refer to myself in third person, but that's just one thing I wanted to share with you all. So we got the question here. What's your typical split with your investors in a syndicated deal? Also, what are your exit strategies? So the split, that's one of the, so mine personally is I just go with a straight equity split. And majority of the equity goes to the investor partners, and that could be anywhere between, and this varies upon deal, anywhere between 75 to 90%, and then whatever the majority percentage goes to both my partner and I on those specific deals, my partner on those deals. So that's how it is. But coming up with that equity structure is reverse engineering, and that's what I was mentioning earlier. With you're looking at your internal rate of returns and then also cash on cash. I don't want to throw out too much of those terms because I don't want to get over too many people's heads with that, but it's reverse engineering what you want to provide to your investor partners, and then you can back in to your equity split, meaning that if you want to give them, let's say, a 12% cash on cash return and an IRR of 20%, however, there's not enough meat on the bone and enough enough cash. Well, you want to have enough cash flow, but there's just not gosh, where am I trying to go with that? That in order to do that, you would have to give 95% of the equity. Of course, you don't want to be giving up 95% of the equity unless you're getting quite a bit of funds. I mean, fees up front. So that's what I mean. I'm going a little bit too much into the trenches because there's if that. But to answer your second question, exit strategies, my primary one is the refinancing. So pulling all cash out, or if not, at least 80 to 90% of it out, returning it to the partners, and then that's when the cash on cash goes up even more because they have lower cash that's in the deal. So, or in the scenario, if the property goes way up in terms of, because we put in the necessary value, pull out all the cash, have no money in the deal, and then you're earning infinite. Wow. Oh my gosh. So the power of real estate. All right. So we've got what is your take on private money or hard money? I myself personally have not done this. I've always just gone the traditional route and of the recent bank, more longer term debt, or you could say private money. That's how I was able to first get started on the thing. It depends on what you mean by private money. So the private money when I first started was my partner and I, at that time, the friends and family that we were using, quote unquote, as private money. And from there, once we really started to ramp up the portfolio, that's when we started going out of the friends and family. And so that's one thing for those of you. All right, thanks for joining, Mr. John Wright. Infinity returns, or infinity and beyond, like the Toy Story. So I actually just recently watched this masterclass of the CEO of the Disney and got so many great takeaways from that. He's been the CEO for close to about 20 years right now. All right, we got some other fans here. We got an Eagles fan. Steelers, I would say all day. We've got 6 rings, but not going too much into that. Okay. So formally started, and this is for people who are looking to just get started, whether if you can use your own cash, that's great. However, if you need to go outside of that, then starting with your power base, your friends and family, and then your friends of your family. So just starting with your inner circle, and then from there to start to branch out, meaning, so was formerly using friends and family. So the first model was buying single family homes. So would buy 10 single family homes and then would renovate those and then get residents in place to where they're fully occupied and cash flowing. So portfolio of 10, and then would raise money from outside investors to then cash out. So the Burr method in essence, but instead of using refinancing through a bank, was bringing other investors in. So they would get a return from what the properties are kicking off. And then those original investors, we would just go do the same thing. And that's how I was able to scale the single family portfolio so quickly, and how I was able to build the investor network outside of that was a lot through leveraging my personal brand So doing things like you see what I'm doing now. So just putting out as much value as possible. And I know I'm going on a different trajectory to answer this person's question, but I'm going into now how to raise money and also into the private money. The hard money, lending side, I haven't needed that. I've always just been able to go the more traditional route, as I mentioned earlier. But in terms of building the personal brand, one book that was absolute game changer for me was Jab, Jab, Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk. Phenomenal book. And the main premise of that is value, value, value. And then the right hook is going for the ask of invest with me or purchase my service, product. But in essence, what I've experienced is you give out so much value that a lot of times you don't necessarily even have to go for the ask, that people do business with who they know. And then that's somebody just called me Tiki Barber. I haven't heard that before, that I look like Tiki Barber. And if I look like Tiki Barber, then I look like Rondé Barber because they're twins. And I actually do have a fraternal twin. That's what I mentioned earlier. And see, it's like squirrel. I always tend to lose my train of thought. But yes, jab, jab, right hook. And what I mean by the path that I took on BiggerPockets.com, which that is a phenomenal source in itself. And it's completely free. Of course, there's some paid, but you can even stick on it free. And hopefully I didn't step on anyone's toes by saying that. Okay, but is by going in the forums and being of value to others. And you may have already just started. So when I first started, I was documenting in a way of my own journey. And then if someone said, hey, I'm looking in the Indianapolis neighborhood I'm looking at Christian Park, for instance, what do you think of that setting? For me, being in Indianapolis and born and raised, I would just offer my personal insights. And that was the way that I started. And then I transitioned to the member blog. And then I was able to ultimately, I reached out to the editor at BiggerPockets to say I would love to start contributing on the main blog itself. And then simultaneously at this time, I was doing offline and online, so digital. So going to local meetups, networking with others, getting my name out there, also getting on other people's podcasts too as a way, because it's about, if you're looking for investors, it's about reverse engineering where their eyeballs at and then also where their ears are. And from that, I position myself to be of value to those people through those various channels. So, I was referring to, you said what's completely free. I said BiggerPockets.com is one. I don't think it's paid. No, it's not. Yeah, there's a free version and there's also upgraded ones. And so what I was mentioning is, I went on, I was able, through the value creation, was able to start contributing on the main blog. And then I took a principle, the 10X rule by Grant Cardone. I know he's getting tons of people are not so fond of him. He's been a huge influence on me. Actually had him on my podcast. And so through that experience is I took his 10X rule and just put a lot of effort in terms of content creation. So meaning I went for quantity. So I would say I contributed, and this goes for everyone, that one, it's consistency at the end of the day when you're doing the value creation, building the personal brand, if you're bringing on investor partners. And through that is I ended up contributing just over 200, and this is blog articles within about a 3.5 year span. So those are the things I just want to mention. That's one of the things I just want to mention to you all, is just really maximizing the amount of effort, because I was not known when I started contributing on the main blog. So I had to really push myself and also the brand out into the marketplace. And I did that by quantity. And most people say, well, I rather do quality over quantity. However, at the same time, the quality is subjective. So I do video content as well. And through that, there's been pieces of content, the lighting's been bad, and it hasn't been, I may have said ums quite a bit, and I post that piece of content, and it does a lot better than even the ones I even spend a lot more effort into. So that's one thing I want to, those of you who are a little bit on the fence in terms of putting out content right now, I believe your personal brand. So I've marketed through the company brand and through my personal brand. I would say the personal brand is significantly easier than the company brand. So that's just me doing a experience share for you all. All right. And so we got, is it time to start buying real estate or wait 2 years? Thanks for that question, Norman Magana. Yes, I always want to get people's name and try and pronounce it as best as I can. And just, yeah, so I would say it is the main component right now that is actually would be the most difficult is the financing element. And it's pretty uncertain exactly how that's going to go at this moment in time, because a lot of lenders, especially I'll take my lender as an example, is that they provided loans to developers and operators in the hotel industry, which that industry as itself, as you all know, took a huge hit. So instead of, I mean, on their mind is working that out versus providing more loans at this present time. So those are the types of dynamics. Many lenders have shifted their criteria overall and have made it more difficult. Myself, I am still steadily buying or even looking to acquire. However, within the contract, it would have the contingency that what is it, COVID, the COVID within the contingency, because don't even know how the financing is going to work, or what's it came down to it is, and I would say in your underwriting that you wouldn't be as aggressive in terms of what the interest rate is, because let's say today it's depending on whatever the treasury is, and then over that specifically, that instead of, let's say today it's 4.25 is what you would be able to get from the lender, you may want to increase that maybe to 4.75 or even 5% to see what it looks like, because there could be a potential that it goes up. And if it doesn't go up, then that's even better for you. But right now, it's just very uncertain. Myself, I'm still prospecting for deals. Don't have anything under contract at this moment, but that's what I have going on. So I've had appointments go up, but yeah. So there, for you, Norman, I feel that if you take the time, and that goes for everyone, if you're saying right now you rather wait, I feel that 2 years from now that you'll be saying the exact same thing. And that's just what I've seen just from my experiences with others that say when we're at the bottom of the market, that, oh, it's not the right time to buy because we're at the bottom of the market. And then when we're in the middle of the market, well, I'm just going to wait till the market goes down. We're at the top of the market. Oh, it's not a good time to buy because we're actually at the top of the market. So and this goes into a whole nother conversation that it's all about mindset. And that's one thing I really just enjoy is on that specific subject is there's limiting beliefs and there's more empowering beliefs. And I was actually watching a video earlier that talks about the story that we tell ourselves. And I thought that was phenomenal and great timing, because that's a story that we could tell ourselves that, hey, it's not the right time to buy. There's all this that's going on. I should wait for a couple years. Or you could tell a more empowering story that, hey, it's not the best of times. However, this is the best time to buy because many people aren't buying, so there's less competition. But on the other end, I do have to figure out the financing, but that's just one problem that I have to solve. So do you guys hear the difference between those two? That's just one more empowering belief. And then from that, when you have the more empowering one, you'll be able to ask the right questions of, now, how do I do this? And then it's just a lot better from that side. So, all right, what website could I use to be on top of the housing market? Look at everything from bird's eye view. If someone could comment below on that, more so, I get my feedback from actually being in the trenches and underwriting deals, and also communicating with brokers too, and having deals sent over to me, and then getting an understanding of what they actually sold for and what the broker believes it'll actually sell for. So there was one deal in particular. This was an 84 unit or so that was here in Indianapolis, just on the south side. And my top dollar I could have did was, I believe it was just under $6 million. And that broker said all day, this will sell about a $8.5 million. So it's like, that was my top dollar on that. And it just wasn't even close. So that's one path that I get, is I'm more boots on the ground, underwriting deals, getting that feedback from the actual marketplace. We got one here from Yico. I already sent 10K mail and letters to buy rental properties. Love it. Still taking action. And that also is, I feel that there is even less noise at this point in time. And one thing is, let's say you're looking to get in touch with the CEO of a major company, or so, that most people are home right now because they're not able to go to their office and work. So it's more probability for you to actually get in touch with them. So that's one thing I want to mention. All right, so just going to wrap up a few more questions because I know here on the IG it shuts off right at an hour. So how does underwriting relates to a real estate? So if you could go a little bit more into detail on that windmill, and what I believe you're going. So when you underwrite a deal, you just want to understand the viability that it is actually a good investment. And a good investment does vary upon who someone is, because what I experience is on a normal deal where I would have to get double digits. Someone who's in, let's say, because I'm in the Midwest, I primarily focus on Midwestern markets. Based here in Indianapolis, Indiana, I have some holdings in Louisville, Kentucky, and looking at Cincinnati, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, St. Louis, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, is that some people are willing to accept a lower return because, let's say, someone who's in California or international that's used to looking at deals that are negative cash flow, they're willing to come here and say, oh, that's fine, I'll earn a 6% or a 7%. Where that deal for me, I would absolutely need to have double digits because that's just how I operate in this specific market. And of course, I could navigate and lower my expectations, but that's a whole nother thing because I've got investors who I also bring on deals, and that person may have the same thing and they've lowered those expectations, or those expectations they were able to get in that market and they had to shift over to another market in order to get those. So hopefully that answers your question in terms of just the underwriting. It's reverse engineering, understand, is it a good investment, and mitigating your risk as much as possible. All right, so looking at some questions over here. What would be an appropriate IRR? So, and also one thing I know many people have in the back of their minds is, what do I do when a specific resident does not make payments, or if that. So Brandon did a phenomenal video on this, and he has actually been doing weekly content on that too. So would definitely visit BiggerPockets.com to get his perspective on that, because he's really doing a good job in terms of really breaking the process down and also understanding those programs that can be offered and also considered to the person. So what would be an appropriate IRR? So IRR is the internal rate of return. This is a little bit more sophisticated, so don't want to go too much into the trenches on it. And IRR just takes into consideration the cash flow, the sale of the property, and then also the duration of time in which it was sold to. So a appropriate IRR, and this varies upon market and also asset that you're investing in, but normally you want to see anywhere between about 15 to 20%. It's pretty common. The higher, the better, of course. So there's that to hopefully answer your question. And those are the types of conversations you would have with your investors. And also, understand one, you can study other operators and see what they are provide. You can, what was I going to say? Study other operators. So it's like comping it out, like a comparable, and seeing the types of assets and then also the returns that they're providing. You can do that, or you can do it the other way. Yes, I do have my own podcast. It is the Real Estate Experience, and then also on BiggerPockets, episode 308, I was on that too. Dropped absolute bombs and golden nuggets. What equity do project sponsors generally get? That can range anywhere between 5 to 20%. Majority of the time, they are getting minority. However, there are some that's what I see majority of the time. So investors get majority of the equity split, and then the person, and you call it the general partner, you call the investors there's another word, that word that you use, sponsor, same as a general partner. And the limited partners get the majority, and the main sponsor, the GP, gets the minority in terms of the equity split. So there's that. And what I was mentioning earlier is, how to get to that equity split is just reverse engineering of, let's say you want to get them a 20% IRR. However, in order to get them that, or a specific cash on cash, that in order to do that, you need to provide them 85% equity. So that's what that means. And myself, the partner that I have on the apartments that I have, does a phenomenal job in terms of the underwriting, because underwriting myself is not a skill set that I have, and found someone to complement those weaknesses so I can further hone in on my strengths. Because underwriting, I don't enjoy spreadsheets. 1 + 1 = 17. Just kidding. I know how to do standard math, but I just don't enjoy all the formulas, spreadsheets, building out the models. I understand it. However, that's not something that I enjoy. So I found someone who does enjoy that. And then that's how we complemented each other's weaknesses. So yeah, so I truly appreciate everyone who's on here. I could do this for days. Every Tuesday, I do this at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be ready moving forward, because it's at my absolute value to, one, be as authentic and transparent as possible and just do an experience share and let you know how I am going through this current ever evolving changes. And I've also experience the negative effects of all of the news and everything that's been quite draining. So the path that I took in the pivot is mitigating the news as much as possible. So formerly, I would say a decade ago, I absolutely cut off the news, but I know now I actually still need to be informed. However, I don't want to just absolutely consume it, because it's mentally draining. So you have that. And then also being a business owner with all the moving parts associated with that. So mitigated the news as possible. And then also more positive input. That's always helped me. And what I was mentioning earlier is that the writing my goals down on a daily basis. And the person here says, how long will this last? I honestly don't know with you guys. So I just hope everyone ends up weathering the storm through this. Myself personally, I believe it's been blown out of proportion, if you want my personal opinion of that. And I believe more people are actually going to be affected and have been affected economically versus from the actual virus itself. That's just me speaking from personal. And to everyone who has been affected to this, prayers going out your way. Be safe and just keep being awesome. That's one thing I really want to really hone or get through to everyone. So thank you so much for always being on these. Have a wonderful day. Keep being awesome. Keep being awesome. Thank you so much, Instagram. Have a great one. All right. Okay. All righty. Have a great one, you all.